All right, welcome to There's Always a Song. My name is Brent Buchanan from Pure Country here in Fredericton, and as the title says, we always have a song on this show, and we got a song coming up a little later on in the show. Right now, I'd like to introduce my guest for tonight's show, and my guest is the very talented and lovely Joyce Boone.
Thank you.
How you making out?
Good, I'm nervous.
Are you nervous? There's
yeah.
nothing to be nervous about.
Yeah, 40 years of this and I still get nervous. Yeah.
Do you get nervous before you go on stage?
Every time.
Do you really?
Every time.
Is it, and it disappears probably?
2 words into the song.
2 words into the song.
Yeah.
So tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and how long you've been doing this? And
So I was raised in Belle Isle.
Yeah.
Adopted back in 1972. Stayed in Belle Isle until I was in my 20s, then moved to St. John, and I've been there ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you enjoy coming to Fredericton because it's so hot in Fredericton compared to St. John.
Wonderful. Yeah. You're being facetious now, aren't you?
Yes, I am a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for quite a while. Like you were saying before we went on the air that you've been performing in bars when you were like 12 years old.
12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, I started out playing bass with Bernice Otis.
Really?
And I did that for about a year, and then I joined Randy Vale's Dark Hollow Band and played 20 years with that same band.
Let's talk about Randy for a minute or two. Randy Vale, he's a New Brunswick legend.
Legend.
A great songwriter.
Incredible.
A gentleman.
Yes.
He's a member of the New Brunswick Country Music Hall of Fame. What was it like to work with Randy? How long ago? Like when did you start?
13.
You were 13.
The tender age of 13.
So it was back when he was pretty damn popular.
Oh yeah, very popular.
Yeah.
You know, still booked all over. People calling, booked 2 years in advance, 4 years in advance for New Year's. Like he was a very popular. But I remember thinking when he first asked me, I was over the moon, thinking I was going to be in a band. You know, like this is so cool. And the kids kind of made fun of me for singing in a country band. And I was like, "What'd you do Saturday night?" They're like, "Nothing." I'm like, "Well, I played a show in Canso, Nova Scotia with a band." So you know.
So what were you? What part of the band were you?
I was lead singer.
Lead singer with Randy.
Yeah, and we also had Austin McGuinness, Darren McGuinness's uncle, I believe, yeah. And so he was part of the band back then as well, and I was the little girl singer with a light switch. So I ran a tambourine and a light switch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the start. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now is playing music your main source of?
It's my only income.
Your only income,
Yeah.
and you're busy.
I'm very busy.
Yeah. Where do you normally play?
Mostly St. John, but I do the odd gig in Freddie or the odd gig in Moncton, or I've got an invitation to go and play in Halifax in the near future. So I'm just starting to spread out now.
Yeah.
But I'm mostly in St. John.
Yeah.
But I'm playing, I think, 18 gigs or 17 gigs in August, which is fantastic. I host a full-time open mic now. So I have a lot of those sorts of irons in the fire. I'm writing a lot more. I have some co-writers that I'm working with right now.
Yeah.
I'll be working with Carol Hill.
Oh, yes.
We're going to try to co-write a song together.
You guys are doing a show in September.
That's right.
At the church in Nashwauk Sis,
That's right,
and I'm going to be emceeing the show, which is the Women of Country Music, I do believe.
It is. Yeah.
So it's going to be a lot of fun.
It is going to be.
So let's talk about your health issues that you've had. Like through the years, you started young, and you've had a couple of pretty serious health issues.
I did, yeah. So I was trying to think. Justin would have been 4, so 32 years ago I had brain aneurysms, which was a very slight chance of even surviving that because one of them had reached a 4.3 or 4.6 or whatever it was, and so I had to sort of take medication and stay sedated a little bit so that I could shrink that one enough to operate. So I went through that, which was a big deal. And then in 2013, 2003, I had thyroid cancer. So I had a tumor attached to my vocal cords, and Dr. Andrea Garland knew I was a full-time musician and took extra special care, really made a much smaller scar than most people have. A big scar, I have a little tiny one, 6 hours instead of a 3.5-hour surgery.
Did they tell you that you probably wouldn't sing again?
More than likely, because she had cut the upper register, so the upper part of the vocal cord had been sliced. And so they did attach it, they reattached it, and it healed over time. Yeah. And when I came to, I sounded like Louis Armstrong. So I sang, I see trees of green. You know, I started to I knew that I was going to stay in music. If I couldn't sing, I was going to become a master at the guitar. I was going to be a talent scout. Yeah. There was going to be some way that music was still a huge part of me because it's such a massive part of me that I would be almost a quarter of a person without it, you know? And so I knew that I would continue in one form or another, but it came back and I've been going full-time ever since.
So how long did it take you to get your voice back after the thyroid cancer?
I think that first year I was pretty well thyroid's a big deal. It runs your whole body. It's a grand central station of your body. And so you have to learn to live life without a thyroid. And, you know, I was going to do a book at one point, what they don't tell you when they take your thyroid, because there's so many things they don't tell you. Because it's going to
So you don't have a thyroid now?
No, it's completely gone. Yeah. And so I had to do radiation afterwards to make sure we took all that, and I had to go back every year to get checked, and I still have to go for regular blood tests to make sure that the thyroid isn't growing back. So I don't know if you understand, but thyroid cancer can appear anywhere. So a piece of that or a cell of that can move into your lung and give you thyroid cancer in your lung. It can go to your ovaries and give you ovarian cancer from the thyroid itself. And so they have to make sure that's gone, right? I have to stay away things like iodine, dulse, those sorts of things I can't eat anymore because it's too much iron and your body can start to reproduce thyroid cells. So it's a lifelong commitment.
So it took you a while to get back to 100%.
I'm going to say a year before I could even really get off the couch. Because you have no motivation. You're a rag doll. That's what Mom used to describe me, as a rag doll. And I used to fall asleep. I'd be in mid-conversation, just fall asleep. And so a year at home with Mom and Dad. Hi, Mom and Dad. Hi, Mama and Papa.
I met your mom and dad at the New Brunswick Country Music Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that in a minute. But you must have been nervous. You must have been a little bit scared that you wouldn't be able to sing again.
I think I went through an identity crisis. And so as an adopted child, I had already gone through an identity crisis. You know, when I first got adopted, I didn't believe that this was my home. I didn't have a home. I certainly didn't know what a mom and a dad were. I didn't know what family love was. I came to a home with 2 sets of great-grandparents, grandparents on a farm, cousins, you know, just an incredible life. But it took me a while to accept that. I went through an identity crisis. I was going through the same thing when they told me I'd never sing again. I was like, who am I now? What do I do now? Who am I going to be? You know, and so about 2 years after that, I mean, I did do the odd show. Right after thyroid cancer, Dr. Andrea Garland had me on our speech pathologist who with breast cancer, and she had me on to do a song, Patsy Cline, Crazy.
Oh, nice.
And I still had the Louis Armstrong voice, so it was probably a year and a half after surgery. I was already back to singing, judging the talent contest at Woodstock, where I'd already won that eons ago. They asked me to be a guest judge, and so, it was about 2 years, and then I went full-time. Full-time. I still did accounting on the side, you know, when I needed money to pay the bills. I was a single mother, so I had to work no matter what I wanted to do. You had to keep your job. But 2 years, and then I went hardcore, and I've been hardcore ever since.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You did mention adoption. You and I have something in common, because we adopted our son, James.
Right.
We adopted James when he was 3 months old, just a baby.
Wow. Yeah, I was 5.
Oh, were you 5 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite a thing to adopt, like for the child, and also for the adopting parents.
Especially a 5-year-old girl, you know, to take me in and love me as though they had me from the day I was born. It's a pretty spectacular thing. And that's why all the men in my life are compared to my father, who's a hero. He's also a volunteer fireman. He's community oriented, so he does everything to help anyone. And so, you know, I won the lottery. Like literally, they could have picked any child, and I was the one who won that lottery, which is really a miracle. Really.
Because normally it's not the older kids that want to get adopted; it's the younger ones.
Oh yeah, they all want babies.
Yeah. So it's meant to be, right?
Oh yeah, I was pretty lucky. Yeah. Like I said, I won the lottery.
So who inspired you in music?
Okay, that's a funny story.
Let's talk locally first. Who locally has in New Brunswick or Canadian country, who's inspired you?
So when they first adopted me, Mom had 3 records: Gordy Lightfoot, Bill Haley and the Comets, Charlie Pride.
Oh.
So Gordy Lightfoot, still a humongous fan of the Gordon songs. I just love them. Randy Vale, of course, you know, I looked up to him like he was a famous superstar from, you know, like he was my Elvis. He was literally my superstar. And so I remember very young, Mom and Dad took me to the drive-in. They'd had me maybe a year. Mom figured I was there a year or so. And Coal Miner's Daughter was playing. Oh. And so I went home talking with a twang. The whole way home, I talked just like Loretta Lynn. Used to drive my folks crazy. But that's what happened. Something snapped when I watched that movie, and I knew that was my life. I hadn't reached it yet, but that was my future. That was my life.
Did they encourage? They must have encouraged you for music. Are they musicians or singers or?
No. Mom has a really pretty little high voice, but you'd never know it because she's shy.
Yeah.
Dad couldn't carry a tune in a bushel basket. And so he used to waltz me all around the floor, and he'd start singing in my ear, and I'd say, "Oh, Daddy, please don't sing.
Please don't sing."
It was just don't sing, Dad.
So how did they know that you? Well, I guess talking after with a twang after Loretta Lynn's movie, I suppose was one.
Well, it was school plays.
Yeah.
I did all the school plays. I sang in the school plays, and then we did the school music festivals where I sang at all of those as well with bare feet. I'd go out on the stage with bare feet. I still do that. Mom's like, "Why don't you wear your shoes?" Anyway, it's just a comfort zone, I guess, for me. So I did all of those things, and then we were at a wedding shower. I can't remember the year, but I was very young, nine or so. Yeah. And Marion Kello, who's Randy Vale's sister, was there. And I just ran right in, and I had pleurisy at the time, which is an infection of the lining around your lung. Yeah. So my breaths it was really hard to breathe. Yeah. And I ran in, she was singing Coat of Many Colors by Dolly Parton. And I sat right there and belted it out like I'd been singing it my whole life. Right. Like, I'm all of 9 years old my whole life, but I felt like this was, and she said to my mom, "This is a natural singer. I will give her free guitar lessons." Free. Wow. And so you know what people pay for guitar lessons, right? And so we went to her house every Monday, and I did guitar lessons, and then I sang for about 45 minutes. And so that was a regular weekly thing every Monday, and that's how it sort of started happening. And as I started to mature as a singer, Randy Vale, her brother, was starting a band, Dark Hollow. Right. And so he'd gotten a hold of Austin McGuinness and the drummer and the guitar player and all that stuff, and he said, "Joyce, I want you to come and be my little singer." And I was like, over the moon. Yeah, like you could have just given me a bucket of gold. Yeah. Like I was so excited, and I knew that was going to be life-changing. Yeah. And it was a life-changing experience for me. Wow. So Marion Kello's on my Hall of Fame. I put her name on there to thank her for that. She's long gone, rest in peace. We love Marion. And Randy, he's my musical dad. Yeah.
And he still plays too, doesn't he?
Oh gosh, yeah. I had him up at Sussex at an open mic, and he and I sang a song. Yeah,
he's one of my favorites.
I love him. Yeah.
So who internationally has inspired you? Patsy, Loretta?
Patsy, oh yeah, all the country greats. Even Minnie Pearl. That's where I got some of my showmanship. Yeah, and the tag on the hat, and she was always unique and really interesting to see. You never knew what she was going to do. Yeah. Like I just loved that about her. And I had some theater in my life as well, so I sort of had this larger than life stage presence, and I still have it. I have people come up to me and say, "I've never seen anyone sing like you," because I feel it from my toes to my nose, and I just push that out to the people, and they feel it. And so, so definitely the country greats, the Highwaymen, Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson.
We were at a show in Woodstock at Old Home Week, and we were backstage talking. It was a New Brunswick Country Music Hall of Fame show, and we're going to get to that in just a sec. But you just casually mentioned that you met the Highwaymen. Yeah. Johnny Cash,
Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and Waylon Jennings.
Yes.
So
just casually.
Huge legends. Well, I feel like now, because I watched Mike do his recording, I feel like I now have to do some name dropping.
Yes, exactly.
Because he's played with, holy moly. But so that was Mom and Dad were very country, and so all I ever heard was country music. Yeah. I didn't know who Michael Jackson was until, midway through high school, someone said, "Oh, listen to this song, it was Thriller." Yeah. And I'm like, "Who's that guy?" I had no idea, and they were laughing at me thinking, "How could you not know who Michael Jackson is?" I'm like, "I don't know, because I listened to country music only." And so I was pretty adamant about being a country artist. I didn't want to branch out from that. I didn't really want that. Other than school dances, I loved bopping to the new, the 80s music, but I really didn't want to be a pop singer, rock singer. That was never my desire.
You were Barbara Mandrell. You were country when country wasn't cool.
I was country when country wasn't cool. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. So I'm thinking like now, later on in my life, it's John Prine, it's, Jason Isbell, it's Child or Child, it's the new names of country that I'm looking to now for direction and helping me to write, because I've finally got a thirst for writing. And it took, because if you're a cover artist your whole life, you're a mimic. You might Joyceify it or put your own spin on it, but you're still being a mimic, really. Yep. And so it took me, I did write little songs as a kid, and I wrote a couple of heartbreak songs. Every little girl writes a heartbreak song. And so I wrote a few of those, but writing was never something I was never taught how to. I didn't really have any knowledge. I didn't play guitar, so anything I did have in my head, I couldn't play it. Yeah. So that's what got me to play guitar. Wow. I wanted to do these original songs I had in my head, and no one else could hear them but me. Yeah. So I thought, I'll pick up that darn guitar. And as soon as I picked up the guitar, I'd been playing in multiple bands. I was in 3 or 4 bands at the same time, a couple of duets. I was playing a lot. Wow. And I realized that I had to learn that guitar to play solo or to do original music. Yeah. And so that came later on in the career, much later on in the career. Now it's become a priority for me to sit down and write the songs. And figure out you know what, I get stuck. I don't know if writers go through this, but I personally get stuck. So I went to a couple of writing clinics, and one of the things I do is I tell the whole song in the first verse, and now there's nothing left to write.
Right.
And so I had to learn how to take that little story and break it into sections, you know, and so that's new for me to even know that, right? I mean, I understood as verse, chorus, but in my mind, it was hard to write something that followed the proper songwriting. And then I got to listen to John Prine, who's writing songs about a teacup or a
he could write a song about
anything.
Yeah.
The phone book. He could write a song about the phone book. And I'm thinking, okay, lyrics don't have to be, Picasso, or they don't have to be on the scale of brilliance. Just start simple and just sort of.
Must be a fan of Merle Haggard.
Oh,
then.
yeah.
Yeah,
Big
Merle's a
fan
great
of Haggard.
songwriter.
Yeah, George Jones.
Tom T. Hall.
Tom T. Hall. Yeah, absolutely. The country legends, that's who I grew up on.
Yeah.
So they're like family to me.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back and talk about, so the Hall of Fame was, I guess it's like, it's a pat on the back, or it's a recognition of your time served, your accomplishments. And so in 2013, I had entered a contest, which I had said I'd never enter another talent contest because I get so nervous that I almost have to be sick beforehand for these contests. And so 2013, someone called me and said, will you enter I Am the Voice St. John? And I said, no, I'm not doing any more of those. And I got off the phone and I thought about it. And musicians can be self-conscious and really brutally hard on themselves. Musicians are brutally hard on themselves. And so we were just talking about that before the show, how hard musicians are on themselves. And so I entered it so that I could get over the fear of being judged and to be able to know that if I thought I did a good performance, then I didn't need to win.
Right.
As soon as I entered it, I knew I had won.
Yeah.
And not win the trophy, but won the battle inside of myself, right?
Yeah.
And so when I won it, well, I was just over the moon. You got a 2-song recording contract, you won a nice chunk of change. So it was a big deal for me, and I think that set me up for having the courage to go full-time solo, which I'm a solo artist now. You know, I wouldn't profess to be a guitar player by any stretch, but to be a solo artist, to be able to do every genre, every decade of music. I have a wide variety of music. I've brought way more country back into my sets now. So that was all from me taking that one chance to get over the hurdle of self-sabotage, self-abuse, self-degradation, where you just, I had my CDs. I went out west and worked just to make enough money to get a CD and buy a home when I got back here with, financial comfort, if you will. And so when I did the CD, they arrived and I was working out west and Mom said, your CDs are here, oh my gosh. And I came home for 10 days and I listened to the CD. I wrote down 2 pages of what I didn't like about it and I put it back in a closet and left it there for a year.
Really?
I was so insecure.
Yeah.
And I came back that year later and listened to it and I was like, what was I being so hard on myself for? This is okay. Why were you so? But that's that musicians tend to, just they expect perfection and nobody's perfect.
No.
So
exactly.
Ever.
And I think fear is a great motivator. For me, it was a really great motivator. I had to MC the Hilltop back
in the day.
Back in the day, 93, 94. The Hilltop used to have these lip sync contests.
Oh my word.
And the place was packed.
And you were nervous.
And I was so nervous, like I was sick to my stomach before I got there.
Story of my life.
And it was just like, and then I said, to heck with it, it is what it is. So
do you get nervous now?
No, not really.
Not at all?
No.
It's not funny.
No.
So you've become really comfortable in your own skin doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people that say, well, what a dingbat that guy is, but I don't care,
Yeah, the new mantra for me is let them.
Yeah, totally.
If they think you're awesome, let them. If they think you suck, let them.
Exactly.
If they want to talk about you, let them. That's my new thing.
Yeah.
Every time something sort of bothers me, I go, let them.
Yep.
Just let them.
Water
Joyce.
off a duck's back.
Right.
Let's talk about Black Gold. That's the song.
Black Gold, that's the song.
You're going to be singing for us.
So I was out west, homesick. I'd really never left Mom and Dad. Even though I lived in St. John, I could go to Mom and Dad's in 40 minutes. So I was easy access to the parents, right?
Yeah.
Out there, I'm 4,000 miles away from home, which is a big deal for this little country girl to be that far away from home. And so I didn't think I'd make it through. And Dad said, why don't you go and buy a guitar? Just go buy a cheap guitar. So we went to this big, massive guitar store outside of Calgary, which is like the size of 3 city blocks.
Yeah.
It's huge. He must have saw me come and he had this light that said, I can sell this girl an expensive
exactly.
guitar. And so I said, I'm here to buy a cheap camp guitar, just a cheap, $200-300 camp guitar, so I'm not so homesick. He puts this beautiful Taylor guitar in my hands. Play with that while I go find you some camp.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing.
He so knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And of course, I played that for the time it took him to bring me these 3 guitars. I played 2 of them, and they just sounded terrible because I had just played this brilliant guitar. And I said, put those away. And working in the oil sands. I had a $50 guitar most of my career.
Yeah.
Dad had gotten a Washburn guitar. A guy was looking for gas money, and Dad bought the guitar from him, and I used that most of my career. And then I did buy a guitar early on in my life, but it was still a low-grade guitar. It was fine, but that's what I did most of my gigs with, those cheap guitars. And so now all of a sudden I have this beautiful guitar. I had like a $600 car at the time and a X amount of dollar guitar. I was like, the guitar's worth twice my car. Like I've never, and so I remember buying it thinking, I've never done anything so lavish because I just not a frivolous person or ostentatious. I don't do any of that show-offy stuff. And so I couldn't believe that Joyce Boone, was spending that kind of money on a guitar. I've been a single mom.
You still have it?
Oh yeah, it's what I'm going to play today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to come back in just a moment. Joyce Boone is here with us, and the song is called Black Gold, and I'm Brent, and this is There's Always a Song. All right, thank you so much for coming back and tuning in to There's Always a Song. My name is Brent Buchanan from Pure Country, and we do have a song for you as promised, and it's a good one too. Joyce Boone is our guest tonight on There's Always a Song, and the song is Black Gold.
Just a few years ago, I had to leave my home just for a paycheck. Well, I'm a New Brunswick girl. I'm living in Alberta world. I'm living in that cold Alberta land. I miss my ma and pa. I miss my best friends a lot. But working in that gold Alberta sand. I'm working in that gold Alberta sand. I'm working in that gold Alberta sand. With big rigs and big trucks, I miss my family that cares so much. But working in that gold Alberta land. I'm working in that gold Alberta sand. I'm working in that gold Alberta sand. Sunsets are pretty in the west. The western sky seems closer to me. There's people from all around the world come chasing down black gold. They're miles away from their homes and their families. Black gold, chasing down, left my hometown for black gold. Met a guy today, he's from half the world away. He's working in that cold Alberta land. He's working in that cold Alberta land. We're working in that gold Alberta sand. Sunsets are pretty in the west. The western sky seems closer to me. There's people from all around the world come chasing down black gold. We're miles away from our homes and our families. Black gold, 'cause I'm a New Brunswick girl. I'm living in Alberta world. I'm living in that cold Alberta land.
All right, Joyce Boone and Black Gold. Thank you so much, Joyce, for being our guest on There's Always a Song. If you know someone who's a singer and songwriter and maybe would like to be a guest on There's Always a Song, ask them to reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, and you can find this show next week, same time, same place. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Brent Buchanan from Pure Country.